So we'll do a little bit of Yang family Tai Chi, and depending on who you're training with, the pronunciations can be different. In the United States, we say Yang. Over there, they say Yang. And some people say Tai Chi with the hard C, and others say Dai Chi. It's a slow motion movement system, and people think that that's kind of odd because it's like, well, how can you fight with it if it's slow? Well, if you go back, if you've done martial arts, you learned everything in slow motion. When you were a beginner, they stood you on a horse and had you do this, and then they sped you up, and then they had you do step throughs, and they put it together in a short form one, and then you started to speed it up. Oh, how fast can I do it? This is the same stuff. It's just that they tell you to stay slow all the time so that you ingrain the muscle memory, if you want to call it that, and then when you need it, it just comes out and it's done quickly because they have combative aspects to it. And that's another subtle difference. So we'll start with the set, and they start with their feet at 45 degrees with their knees bent. And then I would ask you, the question is, how do you bend your knees? And you might think that's kind of a silly question, but you're doing what they call knuckle changes. And when they call them knuckle changes, they mean you're articulating your joints. And for primary concept in Tai Chi, they do the 6 knuckle changes. That means ankle, knee, hip, wrist, elbow, shoulder. And you're going to articulate all of those because it gets the entire body involved. So when you bend your knees, what you really want to think about doing is flexing your ankles. Because when your ankles flex, your knees will automatically start to bend. And it's a matter of putting your consciousness all the way down into your feet and then thinking about how that feels as it works. And so it's a different sense than if you just start with your legs straight and then just bend your knees. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Does it feel different when you do that? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's a weird thing. But so we start with the feet at 45, and then the next important principle is that you keep your head top suspended. It's like somebody put an eye hook in here and a cable, and they stand you up straight. So your body is straight, and that has gravity acting in 1G. Because once you start to bend or lean, then gravity starts to take over and wants to pull you in that direction, so you have to tighten up muscles on the opposing side of the body to get yourself back to level. And that allows you to maintain balance, and you want to learn how to do this because as you get older, and you're going to need that because it helps you with energy management, which means when you're walking, you've got energy in motion, and you need to control it. When you get older and you catch something and you trip, if you're more sensitive to how this works, you can control it, correct, and the chance of you falling down and breaking something is a lot less. So I teach a lot of seniors, and they've been very successful with this sort of thing. So you got the head top suspended, you've got the ankles flexed with the knees bent, and then you tuck your tailbone. So it's like somebody grabs you by your big old Texas belt buckles and pulls it forward. So your tailbone drops underneath. That makes a straight spine. That opens up the channel for the life force, the chi. And then we coordinate that with the breathing and the motion and all that. We've got the entire body involved. Make sense? Okay. Anybody do yoga? It's like a lot of karate. It's taught for motion, but it's not taught for principle. So yoga gets taught for motion, but not for principle. A lot of yoga teachers don't want to touch on it because a lot of Westerners seem to be resistant to it. But they have a channel that goes through the body. They call it the microcosmic orbit or macrocosmic orbit, and it's got energy points along the way. And you want the energy to pass those points so it flows through the body and maintains your health and so on. So the main one is your Tantien, right below your navel. And you've got the solar plexus, the throat, right between the eyes, top of the head, base of the skull, shoulder blades. Down here in the low back called the Mingmen, perineum, and then back up. So you think about channeling the energy through that orbit. Later on it does this, and so on. But for now, you want to get everything lined up so you can open up the chi flow. Got it? Sure. Then you'll be able to levitate by the end of the class. You go left, sink down. Now let your right toes turn in and go back to center. It's just a fancy way of getting from here to here. And this is this, but it's tall. So we call it the high horse. Make sense? Okay. So it's left foot, sink, right foot, sink, and center. You ever seen a golfer or a batter at a baseball game? They get to the plate or they get to the tee and they do stuff like this. And they kind of root themselves. That's what this does. So you take that left foot, you step out, you connect yourself to the earth with the weight on the left leg, then you rotate that right, you connect on the right, and then you settle. So it's kind of like this. Okay? And it's always with the left foot, same reason as in the Kenpo. You know, they don't do anything like this. They just, that's your salute to your friends, your family, your mentors, and so. As you do that, your left arm comes across. It just rotates in, sink, and when your right foot turns, the right hand does it. And as you settle, you're in this position with your arms that look like a circle, and your back is straight, your head is suspended, your tailbone is tucked. Then you breathe in, pull them back, and breathe out. This is the Chinese version of the wave. Okay? And that's where you get your other 3 knuckle changes, because this part works ankles, knees, hips. This part works shoulders, elbows, wrists. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
In the Orient, they say, the Chinese have a saying that the used doorstep never rots. In the United States, we say, use it or lose it. So when you do these articulations and you go through the Tai Chi, you see the different ways your hands, your legs, your waist and so on rotate, so you keep your range of motion. And as you do it, and you keep doing it as you get older, you still got that ability to keep articulating like you used to, because nothing's worse than saying, I used to be able to do that, but I can't anymore. Left and right. Now your knees are bent, and they don't go past your toes. You breathe in through your nose as your hands come up. When you hit about shoulder height, it's kind of like you let your hands do this. You just kind of let them float up. As they float up, you bring your elbows back, and you really don't want this. You just pull them back, and then the wrists do what's called a break. And as they break, you're going to bend the knees or flex the ankles, and you're breathing out. And when you get to the bottom, let your fingertips drop, and you're back in that original position. Okay so far?
Yes, sir.
Try not to attack the movements. In other words, it's not this. Just relax, bring it up, pull back, and sink down. There's another articulation that's kind of subtle, but it's in your shoulder blades. So as you do this, see how my shoulder blades open up a little bit and then they close? And that's important, that's a subtlety, because you can do that like this. And the shoulder blades don't move. But it's important that you get those guys working. Step out, turn in, breathe in, pull them back, breathe out. Shift onto your left. So you take your upper body, your spine, and it just goes over your left side. So think about putting your tailbone over your left heel. Okay. As you do that, you rotate toward your right. As you do that, you raise your right hand. As you do that, you bring your left hand across, and this posture is called hold the ball. So it's like you've got a beach ball. Then just shift forward. All right? That particular posture requires that your hips and your shoulders go straight to the 90-degree angle. If your feet are too wide, they won't let you do that. Your body's going to protest. You've got to take the lesson and work it backwards. And you say, that step was too big. So you have to find that sweet spot that works for you. There's always philosophy tied into motion. And it's If you screwed up in the past, it's going to affect your present. Left, right. Breathe in so you prime the pump with oxygen. Drop it down, shift to the right, and lean forward. And once again, the rules are your knees don't go past your toes, and if you take a look down, you want to make sure that that back knee isn't doing this, because it's not supporting your weight correctly. Your knees don't like that. So the majority of your weight will be on your right side now. This is called in English, the nothing position. And this is the something position. So that's your yin and your yang. You went from nothing to something. And you do the breathing, so you concentrate on how the breath feels, and then you would want to see if you can maybe direct the chi. If you can't direct the chi, maybe you can detect what it's doing. And you get to here, and there are going to be days where you do this movement, and you say, like today, you said, this is great, this feels good. You know, it's good temperature, got nice lighting, it's the right time of day. And other days you get up and it's crash, bang, it just feels bad. Then you make a decision. What am I going to do about that? Am I going to say, well, maybe tomorrow. Just not today, we'll just do it tomorrow. Or you can work through it and smooth it out. I'm a work through it and smooth it out person. I'll do it 2 or 3 times until, okay, now it's coming back together. And then I go on with the set. But it gives you a chance to analyze where you're at today. It's, you know, is something on my mind? Did I eat something funny? Did I drink too much last night? It's left step, right turn, breathe in, breathe out. Shift left, shift right. Now your right leg's got the weight. Pick your left foot up, step straight ahead of where it is right now. Start shifting forward, and you're going to momentarily be in this ball position, and your stance would look kind of like a sumo wrestler. Because you would be here, and it's, for just a moment, you're in that position. Then as you shift onto your left leg, let your right toes turn in. Your right hand comes back like you're swimming, and your left hand or arm comes up like you're holding a shield in front of your body. And this posture is called left ward off. And the name's not real important, but it's one of the basic ones. It's called left ward off because it's used as a defensive posture. So when you do ward off, try to keep this position. This is called the beautiful woman's wrist. And there are stylistic differences in Tai Chi. Some of them will let you break your wrist. You'll see postures that look like this, and other people say, no, you need to do it like that. It's style, really, and they have the reasons for doing it. But you do this so you don't have what's called a break, and don't let your thumb stick out. If you stick your thumb out, it doesn't look nice. Your posture just, it's not good aesthetics, but combatively, Kent, what would you do if you had that opportunity?
Grab their thumb.
You'd grab it and tear it off. So it's like they knew that, and they said, no, we're not going to let you do that. So they're going to let that relax. And if you go back to Chinese medicine, this thumb position affects the lung meridian, so they say it'll affect your breathing. And the fourth reason not to do that is that they think that this means you got a big ego. I'm number one. So relax the hand. Okay? Except in Australia. So you're in that ball position, step forward, come up, and ward off. Now for your martial artists, the reason you do this particular way is because this arm would actually be a back knuckle strike. It would be a closed fist, and it would be smashing the person in the rib cage. And when you hit somebody in the rib cage, the reaction is, ah! The body starts to fold up, and a lot of times that elbow will come up and take your teeth out. But we know that, so we take this hand. This is a grab that pulls it back and eliminates the hinge. So they said, you know what, we know that's going to happen, so let's latch onto that wrist, but they just show it like this. So it doesn't look like anything. Okay. So it's left, and right. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in as you turn. Breathe out as you go forward. Breathing in, step, and breathing out. This gets a little tricky for Kenpo people because the stances are reversed of what we normally do. So this is what they call a forward bow. Their front foot is straight and the back foot's on a 45. This is what we call a forward bow. The front foot's on a 45 and the back foot is straight. So if you're trying to practice both arts, you have to be cognizant that you got to make that change. And then the question always comes up, how do I turn my back foot? Because in the Parker Kenpo, when you turn to a forward bow, you rotate on the ball. And when you do the Tai Chi, they rotate on the heel. And the reason for that is because if you do the turn and you turn the heel out, your stance starts to creep. And it becomes unmanageable. And they use the same sort of an idea that we use in Parker Kenpo of tailoring a stance. We have height, width, and depth, which is a toe-heel line, blah, 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 blah. And there they call it the body ruler. So in other words, they proportion it to your own size. So when a person says, well, Parker Kenpo's, we're the only people that use tailoring, and you're blah, blah, blah. No. The Tai Chi people doing this for a long time. Turn to the right, shift forward, step, left, move forward. We're going to turn back to the right, do a cat stance. So what you did was you put 90% of your weight in your left, and you fold the elbows in, and you have another Tai Chi ball with your left hand on top. So if you're in the right position, basically, you should be able to do this. And if you have to do this, your weight's not distributed correctly. So once again, if you have a line that drives down, it's called the Tai Chi pole, and then you step out on your right heel. So you put your toes, or your heel where your toes were, and then as you do that, you rotate into ward off on the other side. So now you're in right ward off, right hand's in front, and the left hand hangs out behind it. You go, yeah, but I thought you said it's supposed to go over here like the other side. It's like, no, because they said, we know that if you can't get onto his wrist to stop him from bringing the elbow into your teeth, you're going to put that hand on his elbow as you bash him in the wrist. So they just said, let's go down the hinges. Let's check his wrist, keep the arm straight. Can't check the wrist, check the elbow. And then later on, you'll do a move that checks the shoulder. Do you know who Charlie Chaplin was? I didn't want to hear that. But he used to do this funny walk. Very exaggerated, kind of like Chinese opera. And if you look at the steps in the Tai Chi, once you get here, it goes 1, 2, 3. It does that Charlie Chaplin style walking with the weight shift forward and back. Open and close, qua. And that makes no sense to us. It means open and close your waist. And being an American or a Westerner, and you think about waist, what do you think of? Where your belt is. That's not the definition with them. Their definition is it's the waist and the hips. So opening and closing qua, or gua if you prefer that, is when you do a step that opens up. Think about opening the inguinals, shifting forward, and then closing the inguinals. So you work in those adductor and abductor muscles equally. Why do I want that? Well, because they're there, you want to use them. But unless you want to get old and start walking like this, work on opening and closing your qua. Old people walk like that because a lot of them fell down. And they realize along the way, they go, if I take a big step, there's a bigger chance of me falling. So they shorten it up and they start to do this. And I've had so many that I've trained over the years. It's like, we get you to stand up straight. We get you to work on keeping your head up straight, tucking your tailbone, and managing the energy with the shifts, getting yourself supported over the leg, what they call the full leg and the empty leg, then doing the step, and grandma starts to feel more confident. Her steps start to get longer, and she can get rid of the walker, and she's coming back. I can do stuff I didn't do before. That's a good thing. So we did this left ward off. We've got 70% of the weight on our front leg, on our left leg, and we're gonna pour 20% more into that left leg, and that's called a cat stance. So you're gonna step out with your heel. We had our ball now with the left hand on top. So as you shift forward, now we're opening gua on the opposite side of what we did earlier, and we do this ward off with a little different hand position, just because if you like Kenpo terminology, it's called category completion. It's just, you can do this or you can do that. So they show it both ways. Making sense to you? Okay, let's go back to the top. So you're gonna go left foot, right foot, sink and settle. Breathe in. This is when the fire shoots out of your fingertips. Come back and down. Making sure your head top is suspended. Actually, your tongue should be at the roof of your mouth because it closes the energy circuit. It's a circuit breaker. Okay, when somebody's circuit breaker is broken or popped, they do this. Tongue sticks out. So you want to keep the tongue tucked in. And we rotate toward the right, and you shift forward with your Tai Chi ball. Then we shift with the left, step forward, we do our left ward off. So now we've gone back to the 12 o'clock or north position. And we rotate, left hand on top, step with the right, shift forward, and there's your right ward off. Okay? I know this is a lot, but I just want to give you some ideas. So you bring the right hand up, and it looks like an L position. If you know Parker Kenpo, it looks like the beginning of reversing mace. You're going to start to sit back on your back leg. As you sit back, you're going to rotate. As you rotate, you swoop that left hand up. You're going to come around and connect your left hand to your right arm. Okay, there's a couple stylistic differences here. Some people will do it like this. Other people will do it like this. Some people will do it like this. Doesn't matter. Okay. So you press forward, then you sit back, and you come up and underneath like you're doing begging hands. And when you get to this position, there's the other rule they use is don't let your fingers go past your toes. It's like you're in a phone booth, so you can't reach, can't go through the glass. Left, right, up, and down. Turn, stay relaxed, shift forward, put your weight on your right, take the empty left, step up to 12 o'clock again. Do your left ward off, put more weight in your left, turn toward your right, make a ball with your left hand on top, step with your right foot, then ward off right, making sure your thumbs don't stick out. Okay. Swoop through, this is like an and drop back. This would be like an inward block. As you drop back away, this hand comes up. When it hits this position, your arm or your shoulder should have a little curve in it, and that's called the bird's nest. Because if you bring this back on the wrong angle, this stretches and the bird's nest goes away, so there's tension in here. We want to move that arm to a position where there's no tension, and then it plugs into the back of the right as you press forward. So press looks like that ward-off position, except there's contact, whereas ward-off didn't have contact, this one does. Then you sit back, and you come up and under, and you uproot, and that's called push. Good so far? Okay. What they do in this, this particular family system that I learned is they show the push, when you do it in the air, they show it like this. But when you actually push somebody, you'd have to bring your palms into play. But they believe that when you make contact, you lead with those fingers, and the fingers act as probes. So if I'm Making contact with him, I'm not looking at him, but if I make contact, I say, you know, I feel this with this finger. It's like, okay, I have an idea where he's at, but if this finger makes contact, I know he's moving one way. If he starts to turn, maybe he brings his left side toward me, I'll feel the contact here, and I can make my adjustments. Whereas in karate, they kind of predetermine, they go, I'm gonna sock him. I'm gonna hit him with a heel palm. There, it's like they don't decide if they're gonna punch until the last minute when they said, I got hands on, let me see what I should do. That makes sense to you? You got to be real sensitive for that. That's why karate works, is because just form it ahead of time and get it over with. Okay. So we do ward off, transition, roll back, make your bird's nest, press, neutralize the incoming energy, and push forward. I think it helps if you visualize you're at the beach and you time it with the waves. You know, you go back and you go forward. You go back and you go forward. Okay. You ready to move on? We're going to go from the push position. Sit back onto your back leg. Leave your hands where they are and sit back, and it gives an optical illusion of extending your arms. But what you're doing is you're opening the hinge from the back instead of from the front. So your weight was on your front, now it's on your back. It's very strange. It feels funny, it looks funny, but here's the idea. If I've got Danny here, Danny's a big, strong guy. He grabs me, and I go, I want this arm to bend, you know, or I want it to straighten, or whatever it is that I want to accomplish here. And I'm going, he's strong, and he tightens out. I was like, yeah, I'm fighting. It's not working. So I'm trying to make it happen from here. Traction's too powerful because I'm trying to work by opening this hinge with pulling the hand. But if I do this, I can open the hinge by pushing the shoulder. So there's two ways to articulate this, and that's what this does. It opens the hinge by sitting backward instead of extending forward. So it's funny. Okay. So you sit back, now you turn to your left. And when you do that, this rotates in. And this is called the ba position. They call it the ba position. Doesn't have anything to do with sheep. It's called ba because the Chinese character for the numeral 8 is 2 diagonal lines. And if you look down at your feet, they make that ba configuration. We would call it a concave stance. Okay. So we turn, your weight's on your left, now shift over to your right. As you shift over to your right, collect your fingers into the shape of the crane. As you collect your fingers, pull them back toward your right side. As you do that, this has got a tea bag in it, you're going to catch the drips. So it looks like this. Turn to your left, shift to your right, tea bag, catch the drips. Okay? So we do the push, sit back, head top suspended, turn to your left, empty leg rotates, shift your weight over to your right and pull. Your martial artist will get this right away because all you're doing is when this punch comes at you, is you went, that just hooks that arm and your left hand's gonna be ready to be used. All right. So it's push forward, sit back, turn to your left, shift to your right, pivot to a cat stance. Okay. So it's just like somebody threw a cigarette butt down and you crush it out. So you push, you sit back, turn to the left, turn to the right. Step. Now your left foot comes all the way around toward west or 9 o'clock. And as you shift forward, bring your left hand up. You wrote your phone number on it, and now you want to show it to your friend. You go, got the number, check it out. Your right hand hangs out toward the lake. Your left hand is in basically the push position with one hand. Some schools will teach it like this. Some schools will teach it like this. I mean, there's lots of different versions of it. We like the beautiful woman's wrist position, and we don't go past the toe, and the hips and shoulders are rotated to 9 o'clock. Okay, let's go back to the top. That's called single whip. And single whip is used when that punch came at you, is you went, oh, here it comes, and you hook it. Now we know that they're educated, so what's he gonna do next? He's gonna wanna throw this. He wants to throw the elbow side. Oh, no, you don't. So I catch that, and when he feels this, what's he gonna do? He's gonna try to do something else, so I'm gonna go into my single whip. So the movement is punch comes, catch, catch, then we rotate. And you would actually rotate sideways to get the maximum extension. But you don't show that. Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah.
Left, right. See, Kent's the applications guy. He knows all this stuff. Yeah. Up and down. Turn to the right, shift forward, step with your left, shift forward, turn to your right, step with your right, you do your ward off, come up, roll back, you do your press, come back, you do your push, leave your hands, move your body, turn to the left. That's where your right toes will turn in, so you're pigeon-toed. Shift to your right, pivot, put out your cigarette, kind of a big step, come around, and you do the single whip. So your right hand hangs out, and your left hand is extended. Mechanically, you know, I looked at this when I learned it like a Kenpo person. I said, I'm going to take it apart and look at the mechanics of it. Why am I stepping like this? Why is this angle in there? And I looked at it and said to my teacher, I could do this and go over here and do it 90 degrees. Why do I need to go all the way to west or 9 o'clock? Because what I'd seen is when students learn it, they get a little screwed up because it's a big turn. And he said, oh, it's a philosophical statement. What it means is look at the problem from the other side. So go 180 degrees over and look at it like that. So they do that with all their movements. There's always a philosophy that's tacked into it. Okay? And then they go into the 5 elements with the earth and the air and the fire and the water and the wood and the creation destruction cycle and all that. And it's pretty valid. I shouldn't say it's pretty valid, it's valid. And they apply that, and your teacher tells you about these philosophical lessons that go along with the movements. Okay? It's kind of interesting because when I took that 5-element creation destruction cycle and I plugged it into Parker's forms, it's like he knew that because he used wood and water together, or earth and wood, because they're complementary and sometimes they oppose. Metal moves are piercing moves. Unfurling crane would be called an earth move, but there's different types of earth. There's dry dirt, there's mud, there's rock, and so on. And when you've got a big solid movement, it's called a mountain move because it's solid and it's hard, very difficult to move. And you have fire and water. So fire movements are usually smothering moves because that's what fire does. Fire sucks the oxygen out. So a fire move would be something like, he's trying to put a choke on me. So how do I put out the fire? Water or dirt. So I could use earth or water. And if I use a water move, when he tries to put the choke on me and I dissolve out, I used water to dissolve the fire. So it's kind of cool how it all fits together. Asian philosophy is not just found inside of fortune cookies. It's left, and right, up and down. Turn to the right, shift to the right. Right leg's got the weight, so step with your left. Do your left. Turn, left leg's got the weight, so step with the right leg. Do your ward off. Do your roll back. Your press. And your push. Sit back. Turn. Sit on your right. Pivot, step, open, and single whip. That's good. And then just hold that posture until tomorrow morning, and I'll be back to check on you. This is part 2 of yesterday's class. So we'll work through what we did, and then we'll work through the sequence to try to get you around the circuit through this. And if we are successful with that, you'll have been introduced to something called the 4 corners. And the name's a little deceptive because it doesn't go toward the corners. It goes north, south, east, west. Bottom line is you have a sequence that's like a distilled, powerful form of the Tai Chi. And we like to say that it's portable because you can practice it in a motel room or something like that. It doesn't take a lot of space, doesn't take a lot of time, and all that. So we start with the left out and the right in. Breathe in and out. And we shift to the left and turn to the right and shift forward. Then you step left and come forward. So you've got the right arm should be suspended off at your side. The left hand is out front and you're in the left ward off position. And think like you've got a cup of water in your hand and you're gonna tip it forward, almost like you're gonna throw it in somebody's face. There's stylistic differences. Kent and I were talking about this a little while ago, that some instructors tell you to keep the hand straight up and down, and others, like mine, says you need to tip it a little bit because it does a minor change in your structure, and he believes that it aligns and supports a little bit better. So you have to mess with it and see which one works for you. So we turn to the right, make your ball with your left hand on top, step forward with your right foot, shift, let your right toes turn in, you do your right ward off with your left hand kind of floating behind, the hands come up, you make your L shape, you're gonna sit back into the roll back, we do the press, you pull back, you do the push, leave the hands where they are, sit back on your back leg, turn to your left, shift to your right. This is where you get the fingers to come together in the shape of the crane, and you bring your left hand under it so it's like you got a tea bag and you're gonna catch the drips. Then pivot, step with your left. As you shift forward on your left, let your right foot turn in and bring your left hand up like a ward off and then rotate it out so that it's palm forward with your elbow anchored and your fingers don't go past your toes. And your arms should be at about 90 degrees to each other. Okay? And your right hand will be extended out toward the lake with this crane configuration. Okay? So left hand is palm forward. Remember I told you it's like you write a phone number on your hand and say, hey Danny, here's the phone. The left side of your body is considered to be the yang side. It's the male side, and the right side is the yin side. That's just a philosophical sort of thing. And what they do when they practice the forms is they start facing 12 o'clock, but they call it north. And in Chinese philosophy, north is different than what you think north is. And the weird part about it is it's backwards. So their north is actually our south for what we're talking about. And the reason they say that is because when the emperor is facing his people and the sun rises, it rises and it lights up his left side first, so that makes it the yang side. And it makes it hard because when you read some of the materials, it says you're facing north and you must face north and all that. And it's like, well, you don't really have to face true north or magnetic north. You need it as a reference point. But it gets us confused because we're reading it with the Western mind instead of with the Eastern mind. Make sense, kind of, sort of? Okay. Sometimes you see people that tattoo the dragon and the tiger on their arms like the old Kung Fu show. You know, you're supposed to have the dragon on your left arm because that's your yang side. Okay? Tiger goes on the right and you see people have them backwards. Oops. Okay, so you step left, you turn right, you come up, you go down. Where do you go next? Left to go right. Turn to the right. Where do you go next?
Up.
Step back the way you came. And next, you go that way. Anybody remember what this posture's called? Right ward off. And this one, anybody remember the name? It's called roll back. And this one, it's called press. Press looks like ward off. Okay. Then come back, and this one is called push. Sit back, come around, do the capture, pivot, step out, single whip. So this point's over here, so we turn, step, come forward into the ward off, sit back, and press, sit back, and push, sit back, turn left, shift right, pivot, step with the left foot, and now we're back toward 6 o'clock or south. Okay, so we're going to go this way. So you turn, and you step, and you ward off, and we roll back, and you press, and you come back, and you push, and you sit back, we turn to the left, we shift to the right, pivot, you step, and you lean forward. You turn and step, we come up and we roll back. This is like doing an inward block, okay? And you come around and you do the press, you come back and you do the push, and you sit back and you turn and shift, pivot. I'm going to step over here so you can see me. Step and lean. When you're doing these shifting movements, they're actually, the shifts are different. And there's a subtle difference on some of them. So for example, when you come forward and you do this, your weight's coming forward onto the front leg, and the shift goes from the back to the front. So it's just longitudinal shift. Okay, so you do this and this. When you come back to here to the roll back, it's not just back, but it's also to the side. So you have to open the hips when you do that. So it's a kind of a compound movement. Then you go back forward again. And then this one is more simple again, where it just shifts forward and back. So it's not just front, back, front, back, front, back. There's these elements of rotation and a little subtlety to the mechanics. So it gives you a better quality Tai Chi that works the way it's supposed to. We talked about the yin-yang. It's that circle with the line through it. And part of it's white and part of it's black, and the black side's got a white dot and the white side's got a black dot. So you've got your opposites. And it's like, so you got black and white, those are opposite, but what do you have between black and white?
Gray.
Gray, okay. What do you have between night and day? You have dawn, right? and between day and night. So it's dark, it's getting lighter till it gets full light, so you got a little bit of white in the black, and then it reverses at night. So they built it like that, right? And so you have this positive and negative idea. And when you do these postures, you also have a positive and a negative idea. So your positive idea might be, especially for karate people, it makes more sense. If I manage to get a hold of this guy's arm and bash him in the rib cage, this is the positive side. Bang! Make sense? Right? The negative side of the movement would be what's on the inside. So I might have done sort of an entry and I wind up like this. So I've got him trapped. His body fills this part instead of being on the outside. On the positive side, he's on the negative side. Well, why would I want to do something like that? Get this hip throw.
Judo technique.
They could use like a judo type technique, just for example. Okay? So you think about what could be going on in here as well as what's going on out there. Okay. Left, right, up, down. Which way do we go next? Go to the right, shift forward. Doing the Tai Chi ball, step with your right. What's this one called, anybody? Ward off. And this one? Roll back, good. This one? Press, good. Come back. And push. We dissolve and we turn. And then we shift. And we do this capture. And we step. And what's this one called? Single whip. And which way do we go? Right, that way. Step, ward off, roll back, press, push, turn to your left, shift to your right, pivot, step, and what's it called? Single whip. And now we go that way, turn, ward off, roll back, press, dissolve and push, sit back, turn, pivot, and step. Step left, turn right, then you breathe in, and you do this like you're underwater. It's like you're coming up through the water, you get to the top, your legs are almost straight, you pull them back, and you're underwater, so you're pushing the water down, 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 and you bend the knees, and you drop. Then we turn to the right, and we shift to the right. Now your weight's on your right, so you can pick up your left, step straight ahead, and forward. Now put more weight on your left leg, turn to the right, step at the right, and you do your ward off. Swoop through, pull back, and you press. And you come back, and you push. This is what I call a dissolve. So if I was trying to push her, she uses that to kind of brush the arms away. She sits on her back leg, and if she comes back to push, and she pushes me straight, so you lean in and push back, so we're gonna do that again. So you're gonna sit back, and then she's gonna push me, not much happens. Because all I would do is just kind of go back with the push, and step back, and I would have my balance back. But she's too smart for that. So she's gonna come around with this, it's gonna come more up, and make contact here, and go upward as she pushes. So she's going to dissolve the energy. She comes up and under, and she pushes, so it picks me up. And the faster she does it, the more effect it's going to have. So maybe the push comes in, she sits back, knocks it away, and she uproots. It's a little easier like that, isn't it? Yeah, it's kind of weird how it works. So that's the idea. So when you think about it, it's like you go disconnect the person from the earth and shove them away. Make sense? Okay, thank you. Let's go back to this last one, the single whip. You sit back and turn. You bring the right foot back and you cross your hands. Okay. Now you're not actually necessarily going to have to be 50-50 weight. There'll be a little bit more weight on one leg, and we're going to close that up in a minute. Okay. There's an idea when you do Tai Chi, it's called double weighting. Weight as in how much something weighs. And double weighting means if you do a 50-50 weight distribution, and they don't do that in Tai Chi except for one spot at the very beginning and at the end. And they tell you that because if you have more weight on each leg, the way you guys are standing right now, put your weight 50-50. I'm going to have you take a step forward, but I want you to think about how you take the step forward. It doesn't matter which foot, okay? Take a step. And go back where you were. And take a step. And go back where you were. What was the first thing you had to do to take the step?
You put more weight on the other part.
You got to put weight on the other leg. Because you can't step when you're double weighted. You get stuck. And you can be mentally stuck as well. You can be double weighted mentally. An example I like to use is if you know how to drive and the other people don't. I'm sure you've, at some point in your driving experience, you've pulled up at a stoplight, stop sign, or what have you, but usually a stop sign, and the person in front of you can't decide. They start to go and they stop, and it's like they're stuck. They're double weighted. They don't know if they should go, if they should turn, maybe back up. I don't know. And you're back there, don't drive if you're afraid, you know. But they're mentally double weighted. So when you can't make a decision, that's where you're at. You're mentally double weighted, so you got to get more into one or the other. I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it. So when you get to the end there, you don't have all your weight evenly distributed. So we go back to the single whip, open up, adjust the right so your feet are parallel, and cross. You want them about in front of your heart. Your wrist should be in front of your heart. And then as you bring your left foot in, your hands come over and down. So at the beginning of the set, you did this, left foot out. So at the end, you go left foot in. Just like Kenpo. Same thing. So single whip. Open up to the sun. Adjust the right foot. Cross them. And think like you're going to wipe them off. And then step and down. Anybody here know what a slow race is with motorcycles? Yeah. Kent and I ride motorcycles, but what they have at some motorcycle events is they have a race to see who can go the slowest. Because a motorcycle is stable due to speed, because the wheels are actually gyroscopes. So the slower you get on a bicycle or a motorcycle, the less stable you are. So the challenge is to try to keep the motorcycle balanced without putting your feet on the floor as slowly as possible, so the last person to get to the finish line wins. Okay. What's that got to do with Tai Chi? Slowly as possible. And you scan your body from the bottom to the top or the top to the bottom, but you feel what everything is doing in every single move, so then you can make adjustments. And you'll find out, oh, that knee's not right, that foot's in the wrong position, my breathing's a little bit off, my hip needs to come around, or something like that. So we're working through these movements, and you want to do these like like you're underwater. So the water is resisting your movements, and that's what helps you to actually build a little strength. They've actually found that even though you're not doing ballistic movement, which means you're not doing jumping jacks, you're not running and so on, that this will help you improve your cardiovascular health. It's good for your heart. It makes your heart pump. It gets everything moving through the system. It fires your central nervous system for your nerves, works on your lymphatic, and all that good stuff. It's good for your muscles and your bones. So even though it doesn't seem like you're really exploding and doing hard exercise, it's been proven that it works. Even the scientists that have done the studies have said, we know it works, we've got numbers that show that it works, but we can't tell you why. They don't know. Does anybody here know who the Dalai Lama is? Okay, spiritual leader. The Dalai Lama is invited to a conference in Washington, D.C. several years ago of neurologists and cardiologists and so on from all over the world. And I saw the videotape of this. And so these neurologists get up there and they show these PowerPoints and these graphs and test results and all this, and they go, we found that all of this stuff works, it helps the brain, the body, and that the energy patterns of the meridians follow the central nervous system, and it does this and that and the other thing. And they look at the Dalai Lama and he goes, yeah, we knew that. They figured it out a long time ago somehow, which is why this has been around for hundreds of years as an exercise system. Not just an exercise system, but it's really good for your mind and your body. That's one of the benefits of doing Tai Chi. Okay, they've got several elements that are essential for good exercise, for really beneficial exercise. Not saying that riding a bicycle or lifting weights is a bad thing, but they're repetitious, they do the same thing over and over. So it's got to be sophisticated motion, not just putting one foot in front of the other. Okay? It's got to require memory. Okay? And one of the other components is that it should be done with a group, because the energy of other people is a big deal. That's why it's kind of nice to do Tai Chi in a group in the morning when they say when the earth breathes. Are you good?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, guys, thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Yay! The interesting thing is that if you were to make your fist with your right, and when you put your left hand on top, put your thumb inside, if you look at your hands, you see a yin-yang, Chinese symbol for the opposites. So it's just one of those things that people look at, oh, that's kind of fun. You know, it's like a Rubik's Cube for Tai Chi people.